As you all know, today we are meeting for the last time in the context of this present faculty development program. So I welcome you all on this concluding session of current FDP. The topic for today is the regression analysis part 2. Or in the part 1, we addressed ourselves to the conceptual basis of regression analysis, the regression line, regression sum of square, residual sum of square, regression ANOVA, R square, adjusted R square, and coefficients, the constant as well as the regression coefficient. So today we will be taking up the mainly the interpretation and conduct of our regression analysis in SPSS and how to interpret the output, along with how to test the assumptions that underlie regression analysis. So this is the concern for today's lecture. So I am sharing screen. Please enable screen sharing, Dr. Gupta. Shadma.
Yes, sir.
Share host disabled participant screen sharing. I am getting this message.
Pramod sir, please allow the screen sharing. He's the host. Hello.
Yes.
Pramod sir.
Let me
Just
call.
I'll call him. You're calling? I'll call him.
Okay, you call him.
Sir, actually, today I am facing signal problem. Actually, it is cyclonic area. Yes, sir. I have done from my side. Sorry, sir.
Okay, now it is okay. So I hope the presentation is visible to all.
Yes, sir. It is
Okay.
visible.
Yes, sir.
So I start. So the topic for the day is linear regression analysis in SPSS, simple linear regression and multiple linear regression. The agenda includes, we will discuss research objectives and null hypothesis, both in the context of simple linear regression and multiple linear regression. Then we will be conducting simple linear regression in SPSS, and we will interpret the output of simple linear regression. After that, we will move on to multiple linear regression, and then we'll try to interpret the output which we get after conducting the multiple linear regression. Also, effect size will be interpreted. And lastly, we will close the session with the testing assumptions of regression analysis. What are the different assumptions that underlie regression analysis and how they are tested using SPSS. So this is brief overview of today's lecture. So I begin with simple linear regression, research objective and null hypothesis. Now how to write research objective and null hypothesis in regard to simple linear regression. So research objective is to be written in the context of the variables. So one must be the dependent variable or the predicted variable, and another should be the independent variable or the predictor. Now the example which I have chosen is dependent variable is teaching competency, and independent variable or predictor is achievement in a teacher training program. So we have teachers teaching in schools. Okay, there are some of them are competent, some of them are less competent, some of them are more competent. So we want to see whether this their competency, has anything, uh, is in any way related with the achievement in the teacher training program. They have successfully completed the training program, BL or DED or DLR. So they might have a level of achievement in teacher education training program. Now, how this is related with teaching competency? Is achievement in teacher training program a reliable predictor of teaching competency? Those who achieved well in teacher training program must be competent, and those who were subpar in achievement in teacher training program, they will be subpar in teaching competency. So I'm interested in predicting teaching competency, from achievement in a teacher training program. So this is the research situation, and the objective will be written like this: to study the contribution of achievement in teacher training program in predicting the teaching competency of secondary school teachers. Does achievement in teacher training program contributes to significantly predicting the teaching competency of school teachers? This is our research question, and objective has been framed in accordance with that. So it is not difficult now to frame null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is there is no significant contribution of achievement in teacher training program in predicting the teaching competency of secondary school teacher. So research objective and null hypothesis. So you have to mention the dependent variable. No, we are predicting teaching competency on the basis of achievement. Okay, so we want to study whether the achievement in teacher training program contributes towards prediction of teaching competency. So this is the wording which are used. Okay, now I come to, now you know how to write research because this will be needed while interpreting the output. So I'm taking the first example, simple linear regression, SPS output and its interpretation. And this example is the fictitious example, the hypothetical example, which I took yesterday. Yesterday we calculated everything manually, the regression coefficient, the regression equation, the regression sum of the square, the residual sum of the square, total sum of the square, R square, adjusted R square. And yesterday I also demonstrated it through SPSS. So same example, but we did not take up the interpretation part very seriously. Although we referred to the interpretation also in passing, but we did not seriously took up this exercise, which we will take up today. So data 1, module 11, this was the data. So we have two variables, and those two variables are entered in columns as variable 1 and variable 2. Variable 1 is study time, number of hours a student studies per day, okay, and achievement in a test, say out of 5 or out of 10, whatever it is. So this is the data. We took this example yesterday also. Achievement is y score, y variable. Sorry. Okay, this is different example. Achievement is dependent variable, yes, and study time is independent variable. I was confusing with the wording of the research objective, and that was a different, altogether different. The variables were different. Teaching competency and achievement in teacher training program. This is a fresh example. Here, the dependent variable is achievement, independent variable is study time. Can we predict achievement by study time? Those who study more, they achieve more. Those who study less. If it is so, then we will ask students to study more so that they achieve more. Well, this is the only 5 cases are there just to illustrate. And as I showed you yesterday, we conduct regression by using this option analyze and then regression and linear regression. Okay. Dependent variable is achievement. We want to predict achievement with the help of study time. And we are keeping it simple. We are not going into any other detail. Okay, we are just clicking OK. So this is the minimum output you will receive. So here we see we have now four tables rather. First table is table 1. It says how the variables have been entered. It says the variable have all of them have been entered together. So there are various ways in which we can enter, but usually, well, I have confined this presentation to the first method, that is all the variables have been entered together. Here, there is only one variable, independent variable, that is study time. So it doesn't make much difference. Model summary. Model summary tells you the value of R and R square adjusted R square. This is next table, ANOVA. This tells you the value of regression ANOVA, whether regression is significant or not, whether the independent variable contributes significantly in predicting the dependent variable or not. Now this value must be significant in order to significantly predict the dependent variable. And it is significant because the value is 0.037, which is less than the alpha level of 0.05. Then next we have the coefficients, and the coefficients, as you know, are 0.300, 0.450. This is y-intercept, and this one is 0.450 is regression coefficient. Now, what does it mean? Regression coefficient. How to interpret this regression coefficient? How to interpret this t-value? See, this t-value is 3.576, and p-value is same as the value of ANOVA. Okay, please note this point, important point. ANOVA tells us, okay, ANOVA tells us the overall significance of the regression modeling, and this t-value tells us this significance of or the contribution of this individual variable, study time. In this particular context, simple linear regression, we have just one independent variable, therefore these two values are same. T-value is under root of f. If you square t, you will get f. So either you use f or you use t, you are getting at the same conclusion. So in this particular case, ANOVA and this t-value, they tell the same story. There is much difference. When we come to multiple linear regression, then you will be able to appreciate what is the difference between table ANOVA table and this coefficient table t-value. Now let us see how do we write the interpretation. We have understood what does it mean, but how to write is an altogether different exercise. So when you write a research paper or you write your thesis, you have to understand how to write the interpretation. Now this is the table 1, model summary for prediction of achievement. This is second table, regression ANOVA for achievement. Okay, and the third table, regression coefficient for study time. And regression coefficients are of two types. One is unstandardized coefficient, another is standardized coefficient. So beta, B and B in mathematical terminology, B and beta. This beta is standardized, B is unstandardized. What both of these mean and how they are interpreted, this we will see. So basically, these are the three tables, which comprise of the output of regression analysis. Table 1, model summary. Table 2, regression ANOVA. And table 3, regression coefficient. Okay. Well, this tells us the effect size. R tells us the effect size. R square is in fact the effect size. This tells us the significance of the model, whether we are able to significantly predict or not. This tells you the individual contribution of the predictors in predicting the dependent variable. So basically, these are three tables telling you three different things. Now we come to the interpretation part, interpretation of the output. Now we are referring to table 2, first ANOVA table. Table 2 shows that the value of regression ANOVA is significant at 0.05 level of significance. So first of all, we made the decision. We are beginning with this table. We compare it with alpha level. Alpha level is 0.05. Therefore, it is significant. Okay. Then we will have to refer to the F value and degree of freedom. Now, degree of freedom in case of ANOVA are 2. 1 degree of freedom for regression, another degree of freedom for error, residue. Freedom for error. F value is 12.789. Am I audible? Because this says your internet is not stable. Okay. So table 2 shows that the value of regression ANOVA is significant. First of all, we made the decision that it is significant or not. Then the basis on which we are saying this, F13 is 12.789, whose significance value is 0.037, which is less than 0.05. This means the regression model is able to significantly predict achievement on the basis of study time. Now we come to table 3. Table 3, as per table 3, the regression coefficient for study time. Now we are focusing on the predictor, and there is only one predictor, that is study time. So the regression coefficient for study time is significant at 0.05 level of significance, T 3.576, P same, alpha level same. Therefore, the null hypothesis that there is no significant contribution of study time in predicting the achievement of students is rejected. Now this is the null hypothesis which you have framed, and we are testing it, and we found that we can reject this null hypothesis. Null hypothesis says that it does not have significant contribution in prediction, and we are rejecting it. That is, it is contributing significantly in predicting the achievement of students. Now we will interpret the beta coefficient, regression coefficient. Now further, interpreting regression coefficient means, now it is very important. Regression coefficient, what does regression coefficient mean? Regression coefficient means that by an addition of 1 hour of study time leads to an increase of 0.45 marks in achievement. Now see, let us try to understand this regression coefficient, the concept of regression coefficient. Now, here we have X study time and here we have Y achievement. Okay, and this is our regression line. On x-axis we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On y-axis we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like this. X-axis we have study hours 2, 4, 6, and so on. Now, what does regression coefficient means? It means if you increase study time by 1 hour, okay, we have, this was 2 hours, this is 3 hours. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Study time. Achievement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the regression line. Now, if the study time is 3 hours, the achievement is this much. This is achievement for 3 hours. Okay, but if you increase 1 hour of study time, how much achievement is increased? This is what is meant by regression coefficient. So if you increase 1 hour of study time, then you increase 0.5 marks or scores. This is 0.545. Okay. If this line is having more slope, then the regression coefficient, value of regression coefficient will increase. And if this line has less slope, suppose it is zero slope, so 1 hour of increase has a zero addition to achievement. This is what is meant by regression coefficient or regression slope. Now, we were here. Further interpreting regression coefficient means that an addition of 1 hour of study time leads to an increase of 0.45 marks in achievement. Now, what is the meaning of standardized residual? Standardized beta coefficient is, the standardized beta coefficient is 0.9, which means that an increase of 1 standard deviation of study time. Now it is in terms of standard deviation. Okay. If you increase the study time by 1 standard deviation, okay, there will be an increase of 0.9 in standard deviation of, this should be 0.45. Okay, the value is 0.9. This is okay, 0.9. Standardized beta coefficient is 0.9. Okay. So 1 standard deviation, if you increase study time by 1 standard deviation, achievement is increased by 0.9 standard deviation. This is how you have to write the interpretation. Now we come to the table 1 last. Table 1 gives the value of R square as 0.81. Now this is effect size. Effect size for study time. Study time, effect size. How much this is affecting the achievement. So R square is a 0.81, meaning that the success of the regression model in predicting achievement by study time is 81%. Or alternatively, 81% of the variance in achievement of a student is accounted for by the study time. So this is how you write the interpretation of output. Now I come to the multiple linear regression, output and interpretation. So we are taking data in which we have more than one predictor. So let us see what is the data. This is again hypothetical data. I have just constructed it. This is not actual. The number of sample size is 40. Okay. And the three predictors are data interpretation, research aptitude, and attitude towards teaching. These are the three components of that exam, UGC NET. And this is UGC NET result, suppose marks in the form of score. So these are the 80 is the score of student number 1, data interpretation 5, his score or her score is 5, research aptitude is 19, attitude towards teaching is 19. Similarly, number 2, research and that result is that score, and this is the three component score. Okay, this is not some of this. In that exam, this may be some of these. Now, this is the situation. We want to interpret the output of this multiple linear regression. So for this, we should frame first of all the objective and the null hypothesis. Now research objective and null hypothesis for multiple linear regression are written like this. Research objective in this particular situation will be written in this form: to study the joint and individual. Joint means the total, the model, the contribution of the whole model. Okay, taking all three variables together. And individual contribution is contribution of each of the variables separately. So to study the joint and individual contribution of data interpretation, research aptitude, and attitude to teaching in predicting the net result of UGC NET aspirant. This is research objective. Null hypothesis: there is no significant joint and individual contribution of data interpretation. Now in null hypothesis, we essentially test the hypothesis that
Can you hear me? Please write in the chat box. Can you hear my voice? Please wait for some time. There is some internet issue with the resource person. Please wait for some time. He will be joining shortly. Sir, can you hear me?
Hello, madam.
Can you hear me, sir?
हाँ, बताइए जरा कहाँ से ब्रेक हुआ?
I don't know, sir. आपकी आवाज आनी बंद हो गई थी. You were on which slide? Please open that slide. Somebody is saying multiple regression. You were talking about multiple regression.
हाँ. देखिए अभी आपने शुरू किया. Okay. So I start with multiple regression. Presentation is visible.
Yes, sir. Clearly.
Okay. So I start with multiple linear regression. This was the data. Okay. So we conduct first multiple linear regression. There is no difference actually in simple and multiple linear regression steps. These are same. So we go to regression, then linear. Now enter the dependent variable. Now in simple linear regression, independent variable is just one, single. Here we have more than one, two or more than two. So we have three. So we select all these three and take them to independent variables and get the output by clicking at OK. So we get three tables. Like in simple linear regression, I am taking these three to my presentation, and these are the output. Okay, this is research objective. Now, table 4 says that all the variables have been entered. Table 5 says model. It is regarding model summary or prediction of net result. It gives you a value of R square. This is regression ANOVA and this is regression coefficient. These are to be interpreted in the same manner in which we interpreted the simple linear regression. The only difference is now we have three predictor and now we have two effects. One is joint effect and second is separate effect. So interpretation is written like this. Table 4 shows the method of entering the independent variable. Table 5 states the regression model is able to explain 66.5% variance in the net result, or the model is 66.5% successful. Now, from table 6, it can be seen that model is significant because F value is for degree of freedom 336, F value is 23.826, and its significance is less than the alpha level. Table 7 is about individual contribution of the predictors. It can be observed that contribution of data interpretation in predicting net result is significant. Now, individually, we are interpreting the significance. So, contribution of data interpretation is significant. Okay, why? Because t value is significant. Now we interpret the unstandardized regression coefficient B is equal to 0.751, indicates that an increase of one score in data interpretation results in an increase of 0.751 score in net result, provided the two other are kept constant. Now this enters, this is a new entry, and because now there are three variables, we are interpreting the effect of first, but the effect of remaining two is held constant. हाँ जी, दिखाई पड़ा? हेलो?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
अरे वो that is the broad, this Wi-Fi is giving trouble today. Okay.
No issues, sir. No issues.
So we were interpreting standardized beta coefficient. Okay. Standardized beta coefficient is interpreted in terms of standard deviation. 1 unit of change, increase in independent variable is associated with this much increase in increase 0.455 unit of SD in net result. Then similarly, we can interpret the remaining two variable, that is data interpretation and this. I am not going into detail, but a comparison of standardized beta coefficient. Now we are interpreting the standardized beta coefficient across three predictors. See, let us see once again. Standardized beta coefficient are used for interpreting the relative importance of these three. So, for interpreting which variable is more important, is more successful in interpreting in predicting the dependent variable. So these will be used. These are the relative importance of these variables in predicting the dependent variable. So attitude to teaching is 0.456. This is the most important factor. Next is data interpretation, and last is the research aptitude. A comparison of standardized beta coefficient across three predictors suggests that attitude to teaching is the most significant predictor of the net result, followed by data interpretation and research aptitude. So we used the standardized beta coefficient for comparing comparison purpose. For comparison purpose, we use the standardized beta coefficient. Now, this is over. Simple regression analysis is over. Multiple linear regression analysis is over. But we did not check any of the assumptions that underlie this simple or multiple linear regression. Now we come to the assumptions that we have to check before using the regression analysis. So testing assumptions of regression. Now assumptions of regression analysis are: number one, minimum sample size requirement. In regression, we must have minimum acceptable size, sample size, so that we can run regression analysis. We cannot run regression analysis on 5 cases. As I ran the analysis and interpreted. Next is the variables. All the 3 variables or 4 variables should be interval scale variables. The dependent variable as well as the independent variable, they should be scale variable. Then normality of residuals. Residuals, now you know what is residual. Residual is the observed value minus the predicted value. Observed minus predicted is a residual or error. This is residual or error. So this error should be normally distributed. What does it mean and how it is tested? We will see. Now, independence of residuals. These residuals should be independent of each other. The points should be such that there should be no clear pattern in the points. If there is a pattern, then the errors are influencing each other and creating a pattern. So it should be a random pattern. And absence of outlier. There shouldn't be any extremely large or extremely small score. And absence of strong correlation between variables or lack of multicollinearity. We have 4 variables: dependent variable and independent variable. Independent variables are 3, 1, 2, 3. So these 3 should not be very highly correlated. If they are very highly correlated, then there is a problem of multicollinearity. Okay, so these are, and homoscedasticity or constancy of error. Homoscedasticity is like homogeneity of variance. The variance should be same. Now, now let us take up each of these assumptions one by one. So first assumption is assumption of sample size and scale. So both the dependent and the independent variables are scale variables. This is assumption regarding scale, and assumption regarding sample size is at least 20 cases per predictor. So if we have 3 predictors, there should be at least 60 cases, 60 sample size minimum. So in a simple linear regression, there should be at least 20 data. If there is only one predictor, there should be at least 20 data. In multiple linear regression, number of data should be at least 40 in the case of 2 predictors and 60 in the case of 3 predictors. I took 40. In my example, I had 40 cases, but I had 3 predictors, so I am violating this assumption. A glance at each sample size and data collection tool is sufficient to check the assumption. You need not do any statistics. You just check what are your data collection tools and just check what is your sampling strategy and what is your sample size. You will be able to test these assumptions. So no separate statistical analysis is required. So this is simple. Now we come to next. This is detecting multivariate outliers. Now, how to find out outliers? Okay. So we are taking an example. We are predicting work efficiency by institutional leadership. How a principal is there on the institutional ladder, and can we predict his or her work efficiency on the basis of institutional leadership? So I will take up this data. So there is only one variable here, independent, and only one dependent variable. Now potential outliers are detected through these 3 statistics. One is Mahalanobis distance, another is Cook's distance, and third one is central leverage value. Now these are the 3 statistics. You need not go into their theory details, what are these and how they are calculated. But you need to know how they are calculated in the SPSS and how they are interpreted. So we discuss each of these in brief. If the values are greater than the respective critical values, then they indicate an outlier. So here in the table below, you find this is statistics and this is meaning of the concept and significant when it is significant outlier. So first is Mahalanobis distance MD. So this shows how much a case differs from the average of all other cases. And this Mahalanobis distance, SPSS will calculate this distance. It should be greater, if it is greater than chi-square with degree of freedom number of predictor. Now in this particular case, DF is 1. So we will calculate value of chi-square at degree of freedom 1. This is critical value and this is 3.841. If the value of MD is greater than 3.841, then that particular data is outlier. So SPSS will tell you the MD for each and you have to check which one is greater than 3.841 because degree of freedom here is 1. Similarly, Cook's distance. How would beta weight change if the case was dropped? If this particular data is dropped, how would this affect the beta weight or regression coefficient? This should be greater than 1 for outlier. Now, if the value is less than 1, then it is not significant. Then central leverage value 2 into number of predictors into n. The critical value is 2 multiplied by number of predictor 1 and n, suppose whatever it is. So say n is 20. So it 2 upon 20. Okay, that is 0.2, 0.1. So any value greater than 0.1 is an outlier. Now let us see how we calculate these distances. How do we interpret? Now we take this data. Please see this data. This is work efficiency. Okay, I have sample size is 25. So the first assumption is met because we have just one predictor, 20 cases should be there at least, and we have 25 cases. Now we have two quantities. One is work efficiency, another is leadership. Work efficiency and leadership. You know, we gave scale for work efficiency and scale for leadership and got this data. Now we want to say whether there is an outlier in this multivariate outlier. So analyze. Now I'm telling you how to find out these three distances: Mahalanobis distance, Cook's distance, and central leverage value. So linear. Work efficiency is dependent. Leadership is independent. Okay, and this is save. And here we find Mahalanobis, Cook's, and leverage value. These are the three distances. Okay. So continue and okay. So first we get that the regression tables, variable enter, model summary, ANOVA, and beta coefficient, regression coefficient. And now we have this another table added to it. This is residual statistics. So I have taken this to my presentation. Okay, this is the outlier related statistics, the three distances: Mahalanobis distance, Cook's distance, and central leverage value. Minimum, maximum, mean, standard deviation, n. So there are 25 Mahalanobis distances because n is 25. For each one, there is a, let me show you where it is. If we go to the data, so many windows were open, I closed them. But I deleted that particular file also. Analyze regression, linear, work efficiency, and leadership is independent. Save, Mahalanobis, Cook, and leverage. Continue. Okay, okay. So we get the output, but look at the data. In data, we have these three columns added. One is Mahalanobis distance, Cook's distance, and central leverage value. So we have one Mahalanobis distance for each data. Now we will see which one is outlier. And the criteria is that the value greater than, let me come to interpretation. Table 8 shows that Mahalanobis distances range between 0.026 to 4.38. The range is minimum 0.026, maximum 4.388, and the mean is this much. Okay, some standard deviation is this much, and is 25. Now let us see which one is outlier. So Mahalanobis distance range between this and this with the mean of this. The critical value of MD is given by chi-square 1, that is 3.841. So you can check if you want to say. This is chi-square table. So chi-square table, degree of freedom 1. The critical value is at 0.05 level 3.841. So this we have taken. Okay, the maximum value of MD is 4.388. This is greater than 3.841. This means that there is or are significant outlier in the distribution. We have to go to the data set to identify such data points. We will have to see the data. The data is here. So any value greater than 3.841. Okay, so you inspect all these values. This value is greater than 3.841. Rest of them are not. Rest of them are within the range. So this data number 6 is an outlier. Data number 6 is an outlier because the Mahalanobis distance is 4.38, which is greater than the critical value of 3.841. Therefore, we confront one outlier. Now we come to the second one, Hooke's distance. Hooke's distance vary from 0.000 to 3.3383. As none of the CD exceeds 1, there is no significant outlier. As per the second, if we use the Hooke's distance, there is no outlier. Further, the maximum central leverage value of 0.183 is greater than, maximum value is greater than the critical value. Critical value is 2 multiplied by independent variable divided by 1. 2 multiplied by 1 divided by 25. 2 divided by 25 is 0.08. Now, any value greater than 0.08 is an outlier. Any value which is greater than 0.08 is an outlier. This is critical value. Okay, but since the table says that maximum value is 0.8183, that means at least there is one outlier. So we will have to check the data once again to see is there one outlier or many outlier. So we go to the data. Okay, data. One way is we can statistically order these. Say leverage value. No, I go to edit. No, go to data and sort cases. Sort means arrange them. And we want to arrange them in descending order of central leverage value. So CLC descending order. So on the top you will get highest value and on the bottom lowest value. Okay. Then go to data. It has arranged the values. The maximum value is this 0.18283, then 0.11251, then 0.11251, and our critical value was 0.08 if I remember well. So these are the 5 values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are 5 outliers. So there is some problem with this data. We have outlier. Now you may ask what to do under such situation. So you have to manage these outliers. There are strategies to manage the outliers, which in this given time I cannot tell you. I usually take one full lecture on this, how to detect outlier and how to manage them. So the assumption of absence of significant outliers is therefore violated because two of the distances are saying there are outliers accepting Fuchs distance. Therefore, data has multivariate outliers. Now let us go to the next assumption and see how it is tested. Next assumption is the normality of the residuals. Normality of the residual. Residual means the differences of the observed and the predicted value, and they should be normally distributed. Normality is checked by plotting standardized residuals against standardized predicted value. Z residual and against Z predicted. For normality, the plot should be scattered randomly within plus minus 3 range. There should not be pattern. The PP graph and the histogram are also observed. The point in a PP plot should be close to the line for normality. We will see it, and the histogram should be uniform with a peak in the middle. Now let us see how this is done. So this is again next data set, and we will basically go to plot same data. We go to analyze regression, linear, work efficiency, leadership, and this time plots. I am taking things one by one. Plots. Now we have on the left side Z predicted, Z residual, and many more things. So we have to plot. We take Z predicted on x-axis and Z residual on y-axis. And we check histogram and normal probability curve also. And we continue and click OK. So this output is obtained. Again, same regression output plus these plots. Now this is the histogram, and if the distribution were normal, then it would mean like this. Then PP plot. This is standardized predictive value, standardized residual. That's a PP plot. I'm not getting PP plot. Let me once again try analyze regression, linear, plots. Yeah, okay. Normality plot with this was not checked. So this time we hopefully this is PP plot. Now these plots, these points should be on this line. So they are deviating a very little on this side. One point here, slightly above this line, and there's a couple of points, but they are very close to this. This is expected cumulative probability as per normality. So we want these points to be on the line, and they are almost on the line. Similarly, this is almost, this one is almost normal. The area is fitting. This part is excess, and here we have some deficiency. So there is not a serious issue involved with normality. And let us come to this graph. This is again, if we fit a line to this graph, then the data are randomly above and below this. There is no pattern, no curve. Therefore, we can assume normality here. Now, this is a plot for normality of residuals. This is standardized predicted value and standardized residual. This is between 3 and -3. Actually, it is almost between 2 and -2. No, a very few cases outside this. And this is the histogram. This is PP graph. My interpretation. Figure 1 shows the plot of standardized residual against standardized predicted value. The points are more or less situated within ±3 range. Figure 2 shows the histogram of standardized residual for work efficiency along with a normal distribution fitted to it. Though the histogram has an early peak, the deviation of the histogram from the normal probability curve are not very severe. The residuals can thus be assumed to be normal. Next, figure 3 shows PP graph of standardized residual for work efficiency. It is observed that the points are almost situated on the line representing expected normal plot. Therefore, the assumption of normality of residual is not seriously certain. Now, you must take note of this. We have predicted value and predictors. Okay, it is better. Dependent variable and independent variables 1, 2, 3. The assumption is not that the dependent variable as well as the independent variable 1, 2, 3 should be normal. But the assumption is that the residual should be normal. When we predict the values on the basis of these three, okay, on the basis of these three, there is a predicted value and there is actual value. These differences should be normally distributed. Okay. Now, this is assumption of normality, but slightly different from what we understand in the context of t-test and ANOVA. Now, next is the independence of residuals. This was normality of residuals, and another is independence of residuals. Residuals are not in a set pattern. Residuals are random. The scatter plot of the standardized residual, how this is done? This is checked through the graph, the same graph, which we just now plotted, standardized residual against standardized predicted value. But also, this plot should be random and the fit line should have almost zero slope, indicating lack of significant correlation. This is also known as lack of autocorrelation. There should not be autocorrelation. Now there is another way this is tested, and this is Durbin-Watson statistics is also used to test the assumption of independence of error. Residuals are also called errors. So Durbin-Watson statistics is also used for interpreting this. The value of Durbin-Watson statistics should be around 2 for errors to be independent. The Durbin-Watson statistics, if it is outside range 1.5 to 2.5, it should be 2. Well, 2 means around 2 means 1.5 to 2.5. This is acceptable range. This range is not acceptable. If Durbin-Watson statistics is here, then we say that this assumption is not fulfilled. Okay, now how to calculate Durbin-Watson statistics is very easy. This is the same graph which we just now discussed. This is the fit line and this is almost parallel. It has zero slope. Therefore, we can assume that residuals are independent. But now let us see the Durbin-Watson statistics. So again, regression, linear, dependent, independent, statistics. This time we explore this one, statistics. And this is Durbin-Watson. We check this Durbin-Watson and continue. Okay. So this here you find Durbin-Watson. It is in model summary 1.898. This is Durbin-Watson statistics 1.898. So interpretation of independence of residual, scatter plot of standardized residual against standardized predictive value is observed for checking the independence of residuals. As seen from the plot, figure 4, points are almost rectangular and the fit line is having zero gradient, zero slope, suggesting that the errors are independent. Now another statistics used to interpret the independence of residual is Durbin-Watson statistics. Value of Durbin-Watson statistics lying outside this range are considered problematic. But since table line shows DW is 1.898, which is very close to 2, indicating absence of autocorrelation in the residual. There is no correlation, therefore they are independent. So this is regarding the independence of residual statistics. Now, homoscedasticity. This is the example of a heteroscedastic data. We have this data, and in this particular case, what is homoscedasticity? This heteroscedasticity means the variance that the point should be equal at equal distance almost. Okay, this distance now here this much, but on this point distance is only this much, only this much. So the points on the above, points above the line and points below the line should be almost equidistant. So there is a problem. Also, it looks like data are arranged like this. Like this. Therefore, there is a heteroscedasticity or variance varies. Now, last assumption is assumption of multicollinearity. There should not be any multicollinearity. What does it mean? It means the independent variables, they should not be highly correlated among themselves. Correlation matrix is observed to check this assumption. Any correlation, now what is the criteria? They should not be highly correlated. Highly means what? So correlation coefficient greater than 0.9 or some people say 0.8 is problematic. Collinearity diagnostic statistics such as tolerance factor and variance inflation factor are also used to identify multicollinearity. Tolerance factor of less than 0.1 or less than 0.2 by some others is indicative of multicollinearity. Another statistics, okay, used is variance inflation factor, which is the reciprocal of 1 upon TOF. A VIF, variance inflation factor, of greater than 10 or greater than 5 by some indicates multicollinearity. We will see this. Okay. Now, let us first of all see the correlation matrix. And this is the data. See, this is again hypothetical example. Data is insufficient, but see, this is dance skill. There are 10 dancers, no? They have been tested on their skill. This person scores 30, 29, 28, 27. This is practice time, the time which the dancers take per day, say 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or per week, whatever it is. And this is TV watching, 9 hours, 10 hours, 8 hours, 1 hour. Okay. Now, to see whether all these variables are highly correlated or not, what do? We go to correlate and bivariate. Take all these three. In order to find out their intercorrelation, take all these three variables here and just click OK. You will get this table. This is correlation matrix. This says the dance skill. Okay, the correlation coefficient between dance skill and dance skill is 1, obviously. Correlation coefficient between dance skill and practice time is positive and very high, 0.996, almost 1. Correlation coefficient between dance skill and TV watching is negative. No, you expect that there will be negative correlation. The more you watch TV, the less skilled you will be because you are wasting time on TV watching. No, that correlation is minus 0.976. Whether plus or minus, these two correlations are very high. Third is correlation between practice time and TV watching. This is minus 0.974. So there are basically 3 correlations and all 3 are above 0.9. Above 0.9. Therefore, they are too highly correlated. There is a problem of multicollinearity. So coming down to the presentation, we are checking multicollinearity first criteria. Okay. Now, what is the problem with multicollinearity? Problem with multicollinearity is many unexpected results will occur due to multicollinearity problem. If you do not check for multicollinearity, either or you check multicollinearity and still you don't take care whether even if it is violated, still you are using regression, then there will be many kind of problems for you. You will not be able to satisfactorily interpret the output. Problems will be like this. You may get quite big R square. You will get that, you will find R square, the value of R square is quite big. Okay, 0.9, but the regression coefficients are not significant. So you will be at a loss to interpret this finding. Illogical beta weight contrary to direction of the correlation coefficient. Direction of the correlation is negative and your beta weights are positive. F value is significant, but none of the regression coefficients are significant. Big correlation coefficient, but non-significant F value. Correlation R square is big, but F value is not significant. big correlation coefficient, but non-significant t-value. Correlation is big. Correlation between variable 1 and variable 2 is quite high, but you will find that this particular predictor is not able to significantly predict the dependent variable. How can this happen? So these are some of the problems. Now, this is one table I have already told you. Another table is this. This is collinearity statistics. Now let us see how this table is obtained. The second table, collinearity diagnostic. So again, going to the data. Same analyze regression. So one by one, we are exploring each option. Regression, linear, statistics, collinearity diagnostics. They continue, but we have not shown here. Dance skill is the dependent variable, and practice time and TV watching, they are independent variables. Okay, just click OK. So here we go. Model summary, ANOVA, regression coefficients, and collinearity diagnostics. This is collinearity diagnostics. This one. 0.052 tolerance factor or variable inflation factor. You have got tolerance factor and VIF. Now we interpret these. Table 10 gives correlation among the variables, dependent and the independent. The correlation coefficient between independent variables, practice time and TV watching, is minus 0.74. Okay, between these two independent variables, the coefficient is greater than 0.9, suggesting problem of multicollinearity. Now the tolerance for each predictor is 0.052 and the VIF is 19.153. Now any TOF less than 0.1 and VIF greater than 10 indicates multicollinearity. We have seen that tolerance factor less than 0.1 and variable inflation factor greater than 10 are indicative of multicollinearity. Our data in question cannot be assumed to be free from problem of multicollinearity because this is less than 0.1, this is greater than 10. Therefore, multicollinearity is there. As a consequence of multicollinearity, we get a very unexpected result in case we choose to run regression. We have applied regression and we have got a very unexpected result. What is the unexpected result? TV watching has a very strong negative relationship with dance skill. We saw that TV watching, okay, is a very strongly negatively related with dance skill. That means it should be a significant predictor, but it comes out to be a non-significant predictor. Look at this table here. Now, practice time and TV watching. These are our two predictors. Okay. Practice time is a significant predictor. Okay. Where is it? Yeah. T value is this. This is less than 0.01. It's significant predictor. But sorry, practice time. TV watching, T value is minus 0.816 and the P value is 0.441, which is greater than 0.05. Therefore, it is not significant. So how come TV watching, which is so highly correlated with dance skill, it should actually have been a very significant predictor of dance skill. The more you watch TV, the less dance skill you will have. because these two are highly correlated negatively. But this result says that there is a no significant contribution of TV watching in prediction of dance skill. Now this is very unexpected sort of result. We will be at a loss to interpret this cogently. Therefore, we have to get rid of this multicollinearity problem. And now it is interpreting multicollinearity. We have already told you. Now it is time to thank you all for the concluding session as well as for all the sessions which I have been taking since day 1 to day 7. I thank you all and now wait for your questions, if any. So finally, over with the program. Let me see whether there is any question. There is no question in the question answer. Also in chat, I don't find anything. So over to you, sir, Dr. Gupta.
Yes, sir.
Over to you for closing the program.
Okay. Sir, sir, many thanks to you. And obviously we have benefited by you.
One question is there.
Okay.
In SPSS, there is any limit on number of predictors? No, no limit. Unlimited, you can have unlimited. But unlimited do not make any sense because when you want to study something, you will have to study this in relation to 2 or 3 or at the most 4 or 5 things. No, unless you are in the field of say weather or climatic changes and all that, where so many factors are there. How to choose dependent and independent variable in regression analysis is your problem. It is not my problem because it varies from subject to subject. If you are a student of geography, you know what variables are significant to be chosen for. As far as education is concerned, I can give you a hint. This depends on you. Actually, this depends on your research problem. Nobody else can guide you. Any other? This is Priyanka Moria was asking, is there any limit? So Priyanka Moria is answered. Now Sunil, no. Sunil Gavande, how to choose dependent variable? I have answered it. Any other question? I will be happy to answer. We are waiting. The host is waiting. I am waiting. Sir, I asked them to mention topics of their interest for future FDP. Only one has replied, experimental research data analysis. Perhaps she means this analysis of covariance. Because in experimental research we use this pre-test, post-test design. Either you use correlated t-test or you use ANCOVA. Okay. So in the next program, we can focus on it. Unless others also speak out. Another is concept of factor analysis, detection of outlier and how to manage them. Okay. Normality I may take normality and outlier, how to manage outlier. Okay, sir. I think time to close. Hello, Dr. Gupta. Yes, sir. Audible. Hello. I think. हाँ सर, क्या हुआ? अच्छा अच्छा, ओके। चलो फिर क्लोज करते हैं। मैं यहाँ तो दिख रहा है मुझे, यहाँ तो दिख रहा है। आप देखिए मैं हूँ क्या अभी? मुझे तो लग रहा है मैं हूँ, मेरा इंटरनेट यहाँ दिखा रहा है। तो मैं दोबारा करूँ क्या? अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है। ये तो कह रहे हैं अब हैं, तो वो कह रहे हैं कि नहीं है। जरा देखते हैं वो आ जाए। हेलो। हाँ जी, आइए। वेलकम।
Thank you, sir. And many thanks to you for your lectures. We have benefited by you,
थैंक यू
and
सर।
in future we will organize some another programs. और आप सभी participants का भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप सभी ने बहुत ध्यानपूर्वक सुना, बहुत कुछ सीखा, और आशा करता हूं कि आप अपने स्टूडेंट्स को, अपने कलीग्स को और आने वाली नेक्स्ट जनरेशन्स को भी इस नॉलेज से रूबरू कराएंगे, शेयर करेंगे अपने नॉलेज को। एंड आई वुड लाइक टू से विद यू कि वी आर सर्चिंग एंड सीकिंग सम अनदर कोलैबोरेटर कॉलेज फॉर फर्दर प्रोग्राम्स। और हमारा एक मॉड्यूल है, इस स्टार्टअप का जन्म ही इसी आधार पे हुआ है कि हम किसी कॉलेज से किसी भी तरह का सिंगल पेनी भी नहीं लेते हैं और ना ही उनको देते हैं। जस्ट एक रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप अपने स्टूडेंट से ये अपेक्षा कीजिए या कोशिश कीजिए कि वो हमारे प्रोग्राम्स में शामिल होंगे और बेनिफिटेड होंगे। तो अगर आप में से कुछ लोग या अपने मैनेजमेंट या अपने यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हेड ऑफ डिपार्टमेंट से बात कर सकते हैं हमारे प्रोग्राम्स के लिए, तो आप बात कीजिए। आप हमें कुछ नए टॉपिक भी सजेस्ट कर सकते हैं, आप हमें कुछ नए सब्जेक्ट भी सजेस्ट कर सकते हैं। और इसी के साथ many thanks to you again, all of you, and many thanks to our resource person Dr. S.K. Tyagi.
ओके सर, ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Okay.
तो फिर मिलेंगे।
बिल्कुल, ऑफ कोर्स।
ओके, बाय।